Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is our first episode, and we're going to talk about everything entertainment. We're going to talk about movie news, TV news, and before I talk about all of that, I want to say that our most important topic we're going to cover today is how Army Hammer likes to barbecue people. I'm now going to introduce Evan. Evan, what do you have to say for yourself?
Uh, I'm Evan,
That is
co-host,
true.
cannibalism enthusiast, I will say.
That's right.
You know,
I saw that in your Twitter bio.
yeah, it is.
Okay.
Cannibalism enthusiast.
Hmm.
I'll say Army Hammer. He's kind of given the cannibal community a bad name, if you ask me.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
not
They
fake.
were so they were so well
Positive.
renowned before he came by.
He didn't read our monthly newsletter.
No, he didn't. Yeah. All right. So anyway, we're gonna talk about everything entertainment wise, and of course, something big entertainment wise that dropped today was the first two episodes of Marvel's WandaVision. And this is like the first Marvel content we've got since summer 2019, I guess, with Spider-Man 2.
Mm. I don't even think any
And
of the episodes of the TV show dropped since then.
no, yeah. Um, and they're gonna have a bunch of other new series this year with, I think, so WandaVision's 9 episodes, and I think if I'm not mistaken, they once they finish releasing all those episodes, it almost goes right into Falcon and Winter Soldier, where there's like a week break. So it'll be cool because after having a year of no Marvel content, we'll get basically not too much, but a lot of Marvel stuff.
The Disney machine
And
was right back rolling. They did not.
yeah, so WandaVision's first two episodes came out today, and we're going to give our thoughts, spoiler and non spoiler. So I'm going to start off with you, Evan. Do you have any? We'll start with non spoiler thoughts.
Okay, so non-spoiler thoughts. I will say this is probably for anyone, and I'll say like me included,
Mm-hmm.
who looked at the current like state of the MCU and felt that it's a lot very samey. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to say that this is going to break your illusion of that, but it is something different. It's not. It's different, like visually, and maybe it is kind of only different on a sort of superficial level, but it is
Mm-hmm.
something different. It's a change of pace, which I really enjoyed. I thought, I guess to put in a succinct amount of words, I found it more interesting than I found it entertaining. I
Yeah,
was very interested by it. I'm not going to say I was super entertained by it, but I found it very interesting. So,
yeah, I totally agree. I think the interesting thing, like you said, is how Marvel basically they've made their money. They had Endgame, their big event where they broke records at the box office. Was it? I think it was the highest grossing movie of all time, right? At
yeah,
the
I
box
think it
office.
broke that Avatar thing, I think.
Yeah. So Marvel kind of, they have this freedom where they can do things like this and take bigger risks. And I really appreciate the fact that they're doing that because yeah, you're right. A lot of the Marvel movies have had some sameness to it, You can kind of with a lot of the villains, their stories don't continue after the solo movie they're the villain of or, whatever. Once their story's done, they're kind of done. And that's kind of started to, I guess, fade away. We've seen like with Michael Keaton as Vulture, like he's
The
gonna be in the new Venom
Sinister Six
movie.
movie, right? Or they're gonna
Yeah,
bring the Sinister Six into it, right?
I think so. Yeah, and with all the Spider Verse stuff, I'm sure they'll have enough villains to do with Sinister Six. And um, so yeah, Marvel's really. I don't want to
You
say
can have
taking a
fun
big
now.
swing here. Yeah, they have fun. They're having fun with it, and they're kind of not taking a big swing because they have their audience already. Um, my thoughts on this are that with the people who are very casual Marvel viewers, this isn't going to be something they love,
Right.
unless you're really in the Marvel, I guess not lore, but you follow it outside of the movies, I guess.
If you really
Um,
want to know what happens next, if that's
sure.
like your driving thing, you'll get it.
Hmm.
It'll tell you what happens next. And for that,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's enjoyment for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm not worried for Marvel with doing this because if they lose some of their casual viewers, they won't be hurting certainly. But
Because those
my
casual
thing
viewers
is,
will jump right back, I'm sure, for Falcon. And I think this is a minor. If they lose some casual viewers, they're not like going to lose them forever. I think
exactly.
this is one of those things where like it's got a foregone conclusion. We know what it's kind of leading up to. And
Hmm.
because of that, they have the freedom to kind of just do whatever they want with it. Now, while I think they could have used that freedom a bit more, they could have had more fun with it. I
Hmm.
appreciate that they did have fun. They did change it around. I mean, I'm sure as you can explain, the
Sure.
setup to the show is really what makes it different. The
It is so different because when we last saw Vision, he was not alive. um, so so it absolutely, like you said, it's more interesting than entertaining, I guess, because you're wondering, is this in a different timeline? Endgame kind of probably just happened in these characters' worlds. So, are they still dealing with that? Where exactly is this going? And yeah, like I was saying, the casual viewers probably won't be too invested in that until if they have a Disney Plus membership and they have that. I think the first two episodes are probably skippable if you're a casual Marvel fan, to be honest.
yeah,
Um, and I'm not gonna try not to spoil anything, but there's not much that happens besides the sitcom stuff that we saw in the trailers going on in these episodes. They throw little teasers in, and I was trying to figure out, there was some stuff that was recurring, I guess, in both the episodes that I thought, maybe that's leading to something. Um, Again, gonna keep it vague until we're gonna say we're going into spoilers. But yeah, it's certainly very interesting. I was really entertained by the first episode more than the second episode, I would say, because
definitely. The first episode
I,
had the setup, and of course, the first episode did a more traditional sitcom
right.
structure. It was definitely like a reference. That was, of course, like a reference to the standard sitcom plot. That's, of course,
Hmm.
a common scenario you see in shows like that, which I liked. It kind of added a sort of meta level to it, which I thought was funny. But like you said, with these first two episodes, you don't see much outside of the sitcom setup. I kind of thought, and I'll save the specifics for the spoiler
Sure.
episode, but I kind of thought they were going for more of like a maybe like a David Lynch style thing, where
Okay.
like it starts off in the suburbs, but it starts off with like a seemingly nice looking town, and then the deeper you go, the more like weird and twisted and kind of dark it would get. And you don't necessarily see that. For the most part, it's a sitcom that's kind of played straight.
Yeah.
Like it's not that different from like Bewitched or something like that. Where like it's just a sitcom that's got kind of a magical twist to it.
Hmm.
And as sitcoms go, it's not particularly funny or interesting. I think that was my biggest thing is that it has a laugh
Yep.
track, which I
Yeah.
assume might be there like ironically, but the jokes aren't really that funny, and the laugh track on top of it doesn't. I appreciate what they're doing. I appreciate what they're
Yeah.
trying to parody, but I'm like, all right, I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. Not
Right.
after that, it's not that enjoyable to watch.
Sure. Yeah. I think I certainly don't want to take away either, and I don't think you are, but the actors' performances, I think they had so much fun with it because they are still these characters that have been really serious pretty much each time we saw them, like Saving the World series.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not too familiar with like Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen's career outside of Marvel, besides a few movies, but I don't think they've been in sitcoms if I'm not wrong. So I
Yeah,
think
I don't
it's,
think I have.
yeah, so it's certainly a new route for them, I guess, and they definitely did have fun with it because you can tell. I mean, they're always smiling, and um, I think that what the point of that was when the serious moments happen, it's more of a drawback, I guess. You're really like, okay, what's going on in this world?
And those
So
were the
we,
really interesting parts when it
yeah,
went to the serious bit or some of the kind of weird like when the music would slow down and you would kind
hmm
of be for a moment put into like a different world. And that's the stuff I
yeah,
really liked because in their performances were really sold that as they have, yeah, Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen are both amazing in this. They're very
hmm
good. They're very good in playing the Leave It to Beaver style
yes,
sitcom,
yeah,
which I mean it's very I liked it. I like how they act in such like uh if you haven't ever seen the movie, it's a Tim Burton movie. If you ever seen the movie Ed Wood, they do a similar thing where all the characters act in that very 1950s exaggerated style. Or if you've seen the movie Pleasantville, this movie actually reminded me a lot of Pleasantville, WandaVision,
okay,
especially and not good. I don't want to give it away, but the ending of one of the episodes is very much like Pleasantville.
yeah.
But
Both movies, which I have not seen, which is definitely why I'm starting a movie podcast. Um, so I can act like I know about movies. We can go into spoilers now if you want, since we're kind of beating around the bush. I guess you can go ahead
well,
and give your thoughts there.
well, spoiler wise, I don't know if this is really a spoiler. It's more just
Yeah,
about
there's
how
not
the
really
format.
spoilers. I want to start by
Right.
saying that it's
Nothing really
no one dies. No
continues.
one.
Yeah, no one dies. Nothing is really revealed. It's
hmm
more just like mystery. Ooh. But I will say something that I found interesting was that if you look from the first to the second episode, they're doing a kind of different thing with the second episode where they're kind of,
hmm
it seems like it jumps forward about 10 years.
I think that's what they're gonna do each
Yeah.
episode.
That's what I was thinking. I kind of want to see more because I think episode three, I'm sure it'll probably move to the 70s and then the 80s or something, is what I
hmm
think.
hmm
Because of course, at the beginning of episode two, they do the gag where they move the beds together, which
Yes.
is of course very symbolic of like the Leave It to Beaver. They had separate beds, and I think the Dick Van Dyke Show had separate beds. But then when like the Brady's had one bed, that was like, oh, it's a big thing.
Okay.
And it ends much like the movie Pleasantville has a similar thing to it, where episode two ends with it coming into color. Like the color appears, and it's in glorious Technicolor, which
hmm
I thought that was very interesting. I wish they had
It was.
leaned more into that
Sure.
instead of kind of playing it just like a standard sitcom, which just wasn't very. I mean, I guess there's too much to expect for Marvel to go like fully avant-garde with this show, obviously. But those aspects made it feel a little underwhelming to me. It didn't
Okay.
pack the amount of punch that I think a setup like this could. I think they could have taken this form to do some really interesting things, and they did a few things which I will commend. They did, but they didn't really like surprise anyone. I don't
Yeah.
think it wasn't very
Sure.
surprising. Is the best way to say
Yeah.
it.
And kind of going into what I was talking about earlier, where there was stuff that was recurring in both the episodes that seemed like little hints at what was going on. There were two commercials shown, one in each episode. One, I think, was Howard Stark, right? With his, it was a
Yeah,
toaster.
it was like a
Um,
toaster, and it had the glowing red
uh-huh.
thing on it, and it's like from Stark Industries. So
Yeah. And I think I heard a sound effect when they were firing it up or something that sounded very similar to Iron Man, like firing up
yeah,
his you know lasers or whatever's in his suit. I don't know, but Yeah. So I kind of noticed that. I don't know if I'm hearing things or what. But and then in the second episode there was a commercial for a watch, and it was, I think the name was Strucker, and
Yeah, I think it was.
I I
I,
like the
I,
Marvel
I
movies. I'm gonna sound like an idiot. I think that's a name we've heard before in
oh yeah, me too.
Marvel,
Both of us,
like with
audience,
Hydra or
you should know that
something.
neither of us, or at least not me, I'm not a huge Marvel fan.
Yeah,
I've seen the movies, but I don't really
yeah.
remember them all that well. But I
Hmm.
believe Strucker comes up somewhere in the earlier things, right?
It's got to be a German name, right? So it has to do with like
Captain
Hydra.
America, maybe?
I
Yeah,
want to say
Hydra.
Winter Soldier. I uh if all two of our viewers in our comments can correct me when I'm
Right.
obviously wrong on that. So I have no, I'm gonna say I have no clue where this is going. I don't know if it's a comic book reference or something. I'm not a huge Marvel nerd, like we said. We'll watch the movies, but I usually go to YouTube to have other people explain the Easter
Oh,
egg of when,
yeah.
a piece of Thor's hair is on the kitchen counter in the background of a movie or whatever. So yeah,
Well, think of
I'll
how
look into that.
and how
What do you say? Sorry.
thorough they normally are, with those Easter eggs and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. I'm sure if I I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in here for Marvel, for real big MCU
Sure.
super fans to appreciate, but like I didn't see that. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
thing is I imagine as this show progresses, it could evolve into something that would be really interesting or just really new. But
Mm-hmm.
as it stands right now, it's a neat premise that they've done some cool things with, but that I didn't find particularly groundbreaking. It was
Mm-hmm.
different, again, superficially only. It's kind of giving stuff that if we haven't seen it in the MCU, we've seen it in something else. Like I said, like Pleasantville, like that kind of thing.
Sure.
I mean, the kind of like it's a sitcom, but it's a little different, a little dark. I mean, I feel like every David Lynch movie has kind of been about that too and stuff.
Not like
You
other
know?
Marvel properties, Evan. That's
Yeah.
what we're getting at.
So like I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Like I
It was
said,
a it
interesting,
was a start. It was a start.
but yeah, but it wasn't very entertaining. It
Yeah.
wasn't very thought provoking. Again, I feel like the thing with Marvel is that at least they're usually pretty funny. The jokes are pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, there's not really any humor.
Yeah.
In the sitcom plots, again, because they're a sitcom, you don't really care. You know how they'll end up.
Mm-hmm.
If it was like maybe uh, like the in the first episode, the whole plot is the standard. The boss is coming over for dinner. We have to impress them, but things are going
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And there's a
And the
moment,
wife was creepy. Yeah. Go ahead.
right?
Sorry. I
Yeah,
think that's where you're going.
there's a moment near the end when uh, the boss is choking on a piece of food, and Elizabeth Olsen says, "Vision, save him," and he reaches inside and pulls the food out, and then boss, the boss and his wife, they act like nothing happened. They pretend like nothing's going on, and I thought, well, that's interesting. That's
Mm-hmm.
neat. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
they'll move more into that stuff. But then the second episode starts, and none of that kind of stuff happens
Yeah.
again.
None of it carries over. You're right.
And it's
And I
like,
felt. Go ahead. Sorry.
oh well, I mean, maybe that was intentional. Maybe it was just like, oh, we don't have to learn about that, but it's just like that was the most interesting part of the last episode. I hope I wish they would do that kind of stuff again, but they don't really.
Mm-hmm.
It's or like in the second episode when I don't know if it's the first or the second one, but the beekeeper comes in.
That's the end of the second episode.
Right, the end of the second one, where we see the beekeeper, and that was like nice and kind of creepy and atmospheric. And I thought, oh well, hopefully maybe they'll lean more into that. But what I fear is the worst case scenario is that every episode is just like, standard sitcom plot. Something spooky happens.
Mm.
End of episode. And that
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I feel like more happened in the second episode, not to do with the plot, but I think that's going to be the plan where gradually more gets introduced. Um, and the beekeeper was interesting because he came out of the manhole in the middle of their street, and then Wanda said no, and then rewinded everything.
right.
So
I'm like
that
funny.
kind of that kind of gives me the implication that Wanda's in control of what's happening to an extent.
I think
Maybe they're trying to get her out of this, whoever they are.
maybe it's like I'm assuming this could be like Wanda's like fantasy of like what would
Yep.
happen if me and Vision could live a perfectly idyllic life.
Hmm.
But of course, things are breaking in. That's not that's breaking them out of this like fantasy world. And I don't know, that could have been done. I feel like if that was like the point, I feel like you could have done that a bit more atmospherically. If you won, you kind of stuck to a theme of it being like a sitcom, and
Hmm.
then you maybe went a bit if you went a bit weirder or a bit darker or
Hmm.
just a bit more different, and then just kind of pausing for like 30 seconds, and it's like, oh, this is interesting, and then you go right back.
Hmm.
And I think if I hope more, I hope, like you said, with each episode we get more and more. So by the end of the series, it's an all-out kind of like surreal, weird adventure. That's what I'm hoping. But
Hmm.
what I fear is that each episode is just going to follow that format, which they could do. That would be fine, but it's not that entertaining. I
Sure.
guess.
Yeah. And I think Marvel also knew what they were doing when they dropped the first two episodes together, where, like we saw with The Mandalorian, they drop an episode every Friday, but they start with a single episode, and episodes were longer than the WandaVision episodes we got today. And maybe that'll be the case. The episodes will get longer as we get into the real meat of the show. But I think Marvel knew what they were doing when dropping the first two episodes, because they were kind of saying, this might not be for everyone. And I think if we only got one episode this Friday, the first episode, and then the second episode next week, I think we kind of would have been like, what are they doing here? So
That's
I'm
true.
glad they dropped them together.
If they did drop the first episode as the first, and then I watched the second, I don't think I'd be motivated at all to watch the third, fourth, and fifth.
Absolutely.
But seeing them back to back now makes me think now there's kind of a trend I can see,
Hmm.
and maybe that will trend positively, maybe it won't. But like again, obviously the way when I remember when like before this episode dropped and people were first talking about it, and they were like kind of describing it as a kind of like that's Marvel's like weirdest project yet. It's kind of avant-garde, it's kind of surreal. And I guess
Hmm.
in my head that conjured up an image that this couldn't fulfill. And of course, I'm not going to fault it for not being an avant-garde, really surreal, really out there, really weird adventure.
Sure.
But sometimes it feels like it's leading up to that and then it just won't do it. Or
Yeah.
sometimes it feels like it's setting up itself for an opportunity to really explore something interesting, but it doesn't focus on that. Which maybe
No.
that's an intentional choice, and I can respect that. But even if it is an intentional choice, it's not one that entertains me, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
probably more on me than on it, but that's just my personal take on it.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. And I trust Marvel. I think they know what they're doing. I think they want to have a little bit of fun, and it is, there are 7 episodes left, so we could be
Right.
getting really good stuff in these next episodes. We don't know. But yeah, I mean, it was all right. That's
Yeah,
all I that's all I have to say.
it was
Um
fine. That's
yeah,
yeah, it's the best way to say it. It was fine.
give me more next Friday. That's you know,
I hate to be
maybe I
one
don't
of
think
those,
that's too much to ask for.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I hate to be like one of those like hack critics who like gives things like a star rating. If
Yeah,
I were
yeah,
to
yeah.
give it a rating,
0.15 stars out of
yeah.
5.
But
That's
I think
my
if there's
rating.
like a
That's our
middle,
official
as
rating.
middle as it could go, if there's like a
Yeah,
50%, I would give it, because it's just
5
like,
out of 10. Yeah.
yeah, like a 5 out of 10. It's
Yeah.
just like it's it succeeds in being different, but it's not
Hmm.
really different so far. It's not different enough to be notable. I think we could tune back in next week.
Yep.
Maybe if they do something else, then I'll look more favorably upon it. But as of right now, it's a little underwhelming.
Hmm.
So that was my personal take on it. A little underwhelming, but interesting nonetheless. An interesting
Yeah.
movie.
Agreed. All right. Those are our thoughts. Tell us how wrong we are or
Yes.
correct, because we usually are. And I always am. We're going to stick with the MCU because there was an article that came out yesterday, I believe, by Deadline. And it basically said that Chris Evans is going to return to the MCU. And I think they said it could be, multiple films, maybe. Um, I have a weird. Of course, I'm not mad this is happening because Chris Evans as Captain America is awesome. But I do want to say, I feel like it's weird that it's so soon after we just closed the book on his character and we're starting a new series about how someone's taking the role of Captain America. I guess not the role of Captain America, but he gave someone else
Yeah.
the shield. Spoilers for the movie that made the most money ever. Yeah, I don't know. We'll be quick on this one. Do you have any thoughts?
I just feel same as you. I mean, I Chris Evans is great as Captain America. He's a great actor. But I'm just like, this is I remember when Endgame was happening, I I understand the people who had like really emotional responses to Endgame, but for me, I was like, how do I know that they're not just gonna bring all these people back? Like
Yeah.
these deaths aren't as this is kind of what I sort of had feared from when Infinity War started. Remember in Infinity War and all these characters were dying, and I'm like, well, obviously they're gonna
They'll
come
be
back.
back. Yeah.
Obviously they're gonna be back, you
Hmm.
know? And that's where I just kind of am. I'm like, oh, he's not really dead. All right. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I guess it's the same thing where, like, if Robert Downey Jr. comes back to the franchise, I'm like, okay.
Which you probably will.
Yeah, it's like, I think I would respect a lot of it. I would respect a lot more if these movies could take the emotional moments that they themselves are creating seriously enough to, like, stick with them.
Yeah.
But this move doesn't, it's, I don't know, maybe this is me being cynical, but I'm
No,
just
no,
like,
I
you guys killed off a character, and I would, and I mean, maybe they won't do it. Maybe it's not like he's just gonna come back to life.
sure.
Maybe he appears like I don't know, like Hamlet's father. Like he just appears in like as like a ghost, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Come on,
The
do."
ghost of Marvel's past.
Yeah, the ghost of Marvel's
Yeah.
past. But
Tells
if he
them all
does
what they
come
did
back to
wrong.
life, maybe he'll come back to life, and the movie will be great. But it's just like it's that kind of comic book death syndrome. In comic books, people die and come back to life all the time, which is
Hmm.
why when you're reading comic books and someone dies, after a while it doesn't even mean anything. So I'm like, well, they're
Yeah.
gonna be Jason Todd's dead, he's gonna come back.
Hmm.
Superman's dead, he's gonna come back. Gwen Stacy's dead, she's gonna come back as a
Yeah.
clone, as a replica, or whatever, or just they're magically brought back to life. They don't. The deaths themselves don't even really mean anything when they can be reversed so easily.
Hmm.
Which I don't know. It kind of bodes poorly for the way you just kind of engage in media now, where it's like it kind of is turning these movies into a really long soap opera. Which I mean,
Sure.
fine. That's kind of their appeal anyway. But like that's just my take on it. I'm just like,
Yeah,
oh well. It was fun while it
yeah.
lasted.
hmm Yeah, and I think like with all the multiverse stuff they're doing, like they're bringing in people from movies in the early 2000s with Tobey Maguire probably coming back and villains from that franchise, villains from Andrew Garfield and Andrew Garfield himself, maybe Emma Stone.
Oh
It's
right, yeah, for the Spider-Man
yeah.
universe.
And of course these are all, not confirmed until we see the movie, but I think, maybe they throw them in there as a different version or with all the stuff they are doing with Disney Plus, they have the flexibility to throw him in anywhere and he can be Earth 75 cap or whatever it is now. I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
Does the Marvel
fine. Chris Evans,
universe
we knew you were coming back.
is the Marvel universe a specific Earth? Because I know there's like the Earth 616, Earth 1600, whatever. I wonder if the Marvel
Earth
universe has its own
616.
Earth. Huh?
Earth 616 is that's a, I don't know.
I know that
Never
that's
mind.
that's like I guess the regular Marvel comics is Earth 616. To my knowledge, I might be completely wrong. And then
Okay.
if I'm correct, I think the Ultimate is like Earth 1600 or something. If I'm wrong, we're going to be corrected anyway, so
Yeah,
it
sure.
doesn't matter. But like, yeah, I know there's like different Earths that
Okay.
make up the other universes. And I'm wondering, is the MCU, is that its own Earth? Is it not? Who cares? I don't really know. But
Yeah, I mean, I think the timeline itself is messed up too because look at all the time travel stuff they did in the end game. So I don't even know. I'm not gonna pretend to understand the rules. I'm not gonna pretend there are rules because there
right,
aren't, and
that's the
they
thing.
can
That's
do
what
whatever
this
they want because there's a man with a
man
shield
with the
that
broom.
survived in ice for what 70 years. Yeah, so there are
I
no
think
rules.
that's the
That's
thing
my
about
stance.
this. This news is just kind of like, well, the rules don't matter. There are no
Yeah,
rules. None of this
just
matters.
don't.
It's like
that's
just
that's the biggest thing I hate about these movies is people are like, well, when they traveled to Mars, they forgot to put the sword back, and that would make everyone die, and they shouldn't be alive. It's like if you're looking for those flaws, you will
then you'll
find them.
find them. Yeah.
That's the whole Wonder Woman 1984 issue, which we can talk about that movie
Mhm.
later. It's fine. People are stupid. It's a comic
People
book
will be
movie.
like, it's stuff like that, or like, I don't know, Jurassic World or whatever, movies like that, where it's like, people will find like the little plot holes and stuff like that, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I hated the movie because of that. I'm like, that's why you hated the movie? Because of the
Yeah.
plot hole? That's why you didn't like this film?
I
Like, there's
will
like a Red
say,
Letter
I
Media video about that. It's like, that's why you didn't like the movie? Like,
yeah.
no, that shouldn't be the brunt of your complaints about something. If it's like the story didn't make sense, okay, say that. But if it's like, oh, well, this one plot thing didn't make sense, it's like, yeah, but were you watching the movie like stewing in anger because that one plot hole didn't make sense? Like, don't look for that stuff. If that stuff is like again, and when that stuff is like blazingly obvious,
Mhm.
then yeah, point it out if it's that obvious, if it's distracting. But usually it isn't. Usually it's just some guy finding it out. And I'm like, hey, these are fantasy films for children. You
Yep.
don't need to
For
nitpick
children.
them.
No one remembers that. You're watching a movie about a guy, if we talk Star Wars, who there's two sides, two religions, let's say that's what they are,
Yeah.
about a having the ability to move objects with their mind, and they have laser swords, and you're going to complain about how they brought Palpatine back. Anything is possible. That's all I have to say before we go
Yeah.
down that road. And quick spoiler for Wonder Woman 1984. I think that's one of the obvious plot holes of that movie. There's a stone where they can wish to do whatever they want. If
When
I
you
don't
when you
I don't even think I have to say what I was going to say. I mean you can do whatever you want and the sky becomes the stone and Pedro Pascal is really good, but
It's just that phrase
It's
alone, the
kind of dumb.
stone where you can wish for whatever you want. If you want to
And it's called
my
the
thoughts
Dream
about
Stone.
Wonder Woman 1984 in a sentence, I'll just say there's a magic stone where you can wish for whatever you
And Gal Gadot has to stop it all, and she does. Surprise,
Should we
surprise.
segue into
Because
that? Into
do you want
Wonder
to talk about Wonder? I was gonna talk about just 20 movies that came out last year. I guess
Okay.
last year in general. Um, Wonder Woman's an interesting conversation. It's not a bad movie. It's a fine movie. You could say a lot about what you say with Wonder Woman 1984 about not any of the Marvel movies, but some of them, I'm sure.
A good amount of
And people just like to hate on DC because Marvel has done so well. I'll say that. When you look at what Marvel has done, and they had like a 23 film arc basically with all their characters, and you compare that to DC, yeah, I mean, obviously it looks worse on DC, but Wonder Woman 1984 is fine. The performances are really good. I will say that. I don't like what they did with Kristen Wiig. I thought she was pointless. I thought she gave a great performance though, but she was there to fight Wonder Woman because Pedro Pascal couldn't, I guess, because he was just a regular man, although he became a stone. So why didn't he wish for fighting powers to beat her?
okay.
Who would have
So
thought of that?
me
Go
and
ahead.
me and Declan disagree on our final analysis.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad film. I don't think it's an awful film.
Hmm.
I I don't I, I
No,
don't
I
think
think it's decent if that's what you're saying. I don't
see
want to step
my
on your
thing is
feet. But
that it's not that like it's not that much worse than really any other Marvel film.
yeah, it's
It's just
watchable for
that
sure.
all the kind of flaws, quote unquote, in it are just a bit more apparent. Like the action just
Hmm.
not being engaging at all and being weirdly unconvincing. And the fight scenes that kind of look like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. But like the movie isn't as funny as Spider-Man is. Like it doesn't know it's
Yeah,
like
it
Spider.
tries to though. It definitely tries to with Chris Pine.
That's the thing. This
I know
movie
it sounds like I'm
is
killing this movie,
wild.
but
It's
it's
really
fine.
wild. And that's what I do kind of enjoy about it, is how weird and off the walls it is. I
Hmm.
think it's honestly, like if you take away all the weird stuff, I think it's an okay film, really not that much different than other superhero fare. But when you add in all the weird stuff, like the really weird plot, and again, I'm not interested in getting into the nitpicks of it,
Yeah, and
but
I
I
know
will
people are
say
going
the
to call me a
story does
hypocrite,
kind
but
of progress in a way where you're kind of wondering what's happening at all times. It'll be like things will happen after the fact, and you'll be like, oh,
yeah,
oh, oh, like when Wonder Woman comes back, and are we on spoilers or no spoilers yet?
yeah. Go ahead and spoil. It's been out
Well, like
for
it's been out
everyone.
for a while.
Yeah,
Wonder Woman, like, she comes back, she's got her powers again, and you're like, wait, didn't she give up her power? Oh, that's where Chris Pine went. He's just gone.
hmm
Okay, like there's so many moments where that happens where it'll just be like after the fact you realize, oh, that's what happened? Oh, she's a cat monster now? What?
yeah,
Oh, so that was her. Okay, so that was her wish.
yeah.
Or like kind of the whole Pedro Pascal arc kind of symbolizes, I guess, how I feel about this film because he wishes to be the stone and he wishes to grant magical powers, and then it's just kind of he goes just kind of on a vague track to power. Like he's
Hmm.
in an unnamed Middle Eastern country and he asks unnamed Middle Eastern stereotype, what do you want? And he's like,
Yeah,
oh, I want all this land. And then he gets, and that's the thing, his kind of search is for the vaguest word like power. But you don't
Yep.
see him with powers. He doesn't have magical powers. He's not become like
No,
a king of the world. He's just kind of he's just kind of
he's
going
certainly
crazier,
stoppable.
I guess. I guess when it leads up to the end, right, and he's on live TV, like
Hmm.
ranting and raving about wishes, it's just like I don't get the logical concession of what led up to this point. So this point doesn't mean anything to me, and that's my only flaw with the movie is that everything about you have to care about something. The movie kind of doesn't put a lot of stock into anything. And so by the time the conclusion happens, I kind of like I don't care. I
Yeah,
don't know any of this, and I don't really care to know because like Pedro Pascal is funny. He's very
he's
like
good.
hammy and wild, like a comic book villain should be, which I really liked.
Hmm.
But like Kristen Wiig was
Yeah, I
not
want to
very good
be
comic.
more powerful than you and as beautiful as you. And sorry, it sounds
Right.
like I'm
And
killing this
then
movie. I think it's decent. I know I said if you look into and try to nitpick things that you will find them, and that's kind of what I'm doing right now. But they are a little
right.
obvious. I'm gonna be
Me
honest.
too. It's less that, but here's the thing. When people do that, when people look for things to like critique, that's where I have an issue. But I remember watching Wonder Woman, those things just wouldn't stop being in my brain. Like
Yeah.
just something would happen and I was like, what wait, let me I gotta rewind this to see what happened. Like it would just be like the story, I guess the story is told in such a weirdly vague way.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that everything needs to be over explained, but I like enough explained that I get what's going on. That like I can get, all right, they're pursuing this guy to do this because of this reason and because this thing is a good thing. Like the whole thing about her finding the wish rock and then they
Yeah.
just kind of run into Pedro Pascal coincidentally in the
Yeah.
desert, and then they fight him in a weird, unconvincing action scene. And the thing is, the action in a movie like this, like I'll take an analog to this movie, is the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy.
Hmm.
Those movies are about as silly and weird, and also kind of have things that don't really make sense. But in that movie, it's very simple. Things are left
Hmm.
simple. The characters have emotions that you really care about, and it's done in just enough a way that you care. And when it gets to the final action sequence at the end, it has enough emotional weight behind it that you care who wins and who loses.
Yes.
Wonder Woman 1984, things just kind of happen automatically, like because it's a superhero movie. Each of
Hmm.
these action set pieces, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about
The
any of these people because they none of them act. They don't have real emotional weight. The relationship between Diana and Steve, it's rushed into and rushed out of. So by the time it's over, you don't really see Diana's pain about losing Steve
sure.
because you never really felt them together. They never, obviously, they didn't have to do a falling in love montage again because they were already in love. But it's just like he appears and he disappears with little narrative impact or narrative weight. She loses her powers and then performs kind of worse in a fight, but still wins. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of
Yeah.
like meandering in my speech.
No, that's all right.
It's just like I appreciate what this film was trying to do, to be kind of a very light escapist, like Spider-Man, a very light escapist, little fun adventure. But I think it gets to the point where it's so overwhelmed with whimsy and it's so vague and not specific enough and it's not sincere enough. I think the actors are good, but even Gal Gadot is kind of phoning it in at moments. You can tell that's like she doesn't buy it as much, so we kind of don't. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is that this movie, it really doesn't buy itself, so we don't really buy it. At least that was my take.
Okay.
I get people will disagree with it, but and I
Yeah.
understand that people will like this film. That was just my personal take on it. As someone who's not a huge superhero fan, as someone who's like can hit or miss on both the MCU and the DCEU,
Hmm.
I will say this one was fine.
Yeah.
Fine, but I really wasn't entertained and I
Yeah.
didn't find any of it interesting.
Yeah. That's fine.
So
And
it's fine
yeah.
as far as superhero movies go, I guess. But as just in terms of like as a regular film, there's really no rewatch value to it, I would say.
Sure.
It just kind of a nothing of a film.
Yep. Yeah. And one other complaint I have is just I couldn't really see the last fight between Kristen Wiig and Gal Gadot. I was like, I
Yeah, it was
can't.
really dark.
I saw it in the
Also,
theater, so maybe it was
she
different on
turns into
HBO
like
Max.
one of the cats from Cats
Hmm.
inexplicably
Yeah.
because I guess she wishes Pedro Pascal gives her a second wish, and she goes, "I want to be an apex predator," which turns into a cat
Oh, that's the
monster.
worst line in the movie. I'm sorry. That's the worst.
This is so
Oh,
silly. It's
it was.
so ridiculous.
She could have. It was just so she could become. It was just so she could be a famous Wonder Woman villain. She could have said anything there. That was
I want to become
um.
a cheetah, but that's the thing. The cheetah is like Wonder Woman's arch enemy, but in this one, the big villain is Pedro Pascal.
Yes,
What's his
that's
name?
my issue.
Like Max as
Max. Oh my God, I'm completely blanking right now.
as Mad Max, whatever. Pedro
Yeah, Mad Max
Pascal
Fury Road.
he becomes so Max Lord.
Yes, I was just about to Google it.
Even the
Yes,
name,
we're a movie
everything
podcast.
about this movie is just so silly, is the thing about it. And even in movies that are really silly, there's something about it that gives it heart or sincerity or like enough emotional weight that we care. But all those parts are really rushed and they're not explained enough that we care about it. The action isn't really good enough. I remember I noticed because I watched this movie twice. The second time I watched this movie, I noticed no one dies throughout the entire thing, which isn't a must for a superhero movie, but
Yeah, I
it
didn't think
has
about
the
that.
effect of making neither of the villains are particularly menacing. When Kristen
Sure.
Wiig becomes quote unquote evil, she's like what she's doing is she's just beating up like a guy who like catcalled her and like attempted to assault her. And when it
Yeah.
happens, I'm like, oh,
Yeah. It
is
was.
this supposed to be a bad thing? This guy has
Yeah.
been nothing but evil to her the whole movie, and
Yeah.
then she fights him, and I thought, oh, well, maybe she'll take it too far, like she'll kill him,
Mm,
but she
mm.
doesn't. She just kicks him a bunch, and I'm
Right.
like,
That would have been interesting because she wasn't really a villain.
right. And then that happened, and I thought, are we supposed to view this as her being evil or as her getting her revenge?
Mm,
But then she suddenly becomes evil inexplicably. Like there's never any we never are told why she has joined forces against Wonder Woman.
totally.
I guess she just went crazy with power. She went mad
Yeah.
with
That's.
power.
I guess that's the only explanation. Yeah.
That
Yeah. So
it
fine
just
movie.
nothing made sense really.
No.
If if it was if any of these things worked, if it had some nice action, if the villain was threatening, if the story made sense, these didn't have to all be there. But the fact that all of these flaws are compounded upon each other is what kind of sinks this movie for me. Nothing in this movie alone could sink a movie, but all of them together can. A story that's weird and meandering and doesn't make a lot of sense, action that's not very impactful. The interpersonal drama of the characters is really rushed and underexplained. All of these combined just make the movie. It's just
Yeah. And
it's a
going off your
ridiculous, ridiculous film.
yes. And going off your point where you said no one really dies, I kind of feel like that's not why it was set in 1984, but the next Wonder Woman movie will, it's got to be in present day, I have to think, because they've
Right.
spent a lot of time in the past. And I mean, this movie's kind of in 1984 for no reason other than a cool, like, hey, we're in the 80s, we're in a
Hey, remember the
mall, and
80s? That's the
Kristen
thing.
Wiig's
That's
wearing
the
an 80s outfit
the
in
fact
the
that it's
when
set
she's
in
in the
the
gym.
80s, it's covered in 80s stuff, but not an 80s story.
No, not at all.
I
If
really
I told you this movie was in present day, you'd be like, okay,
uh yeah.
that's
The
kind
only
of. I mean, that's maybe I'm wrong, but
no,
besides a
but
few shots,
from what I can remember, there's nothing about it that's specifically relevant
directly 80s.
to the
Yeah.
1980s. I kind of thought, see, I thought with the whole Max Lord thing that maybe they would kind of do a take on like he's going to be like a Wall Street yuppie.
Hmm.
Even the fact that it's like the 80s, they go to the president's office, and I thought, is that supposed to be Reagan? Is that supposed to be
No,
Ronald?
not
It's
at all.
not Ronald, but
Not,
he looks kind of like Ronald Reagan,
yeah.
but he's not doing the Reagan voice. And I was really confused. I was like, and I was watching the movie. I had to look up on Wikipedia to see does it does the cast list say President Reagan, and it doesn't. It just
Yeah.
says the president. And I'm like,
Really, I never caught
why
that.
would you put it in the 80s? Why would you have this guy who, with this character, you could do a very good like satire on like yuppies, on like the kind of the Wall Street culture. Maybe the villain is someone like Gordon Gekko or like Patrick Bateman, like that kind of guy.
Hmm.
But they didn't. They decided to ignore
Yeah,
that.
they
It was
got
right there. It was right there for them, and they just didn't do it.
they got him off of Cameo, and he was listed as Ronald Reagan, and it cost $10 to make a video filmed as Ronald Reagan to give as a birthday present to your to whoever in your family loves Ronald Reagan. Yeah, that's my stance on that. Okay, so that was us talking about the problems with Wonder Woman 1984, which are many, but it's fine because
It's if
we
you
kind of picked it apart, I guess.
My thing is, if you wanted to watch this movie, you're not going to hate it.
Yeah,
That was my thing.
sure.
I wasn't, I mean, I would say I'm not a big comic book fan, but I do like a lot of superhero media. I love, I like a lot of the MCU movies. I actually even
Hmm.
like a lot of the DCU movies. I liked Shazam. I liked the first Wonder Woman. I even liked Man of Steel, which everyone hated. I like Batman the Animated Series, all that stuff. It's just that I will see some of these movies and I'll just be like, I don't really care about this one. And if the words Wonder Woman 1984 don't
Hmm.
immediately thrill you, then you're not going to have a great time with this movie.
Yeah.
If you were already pumped to see it, you're not going to be let down. It's got Wonder Woman in it. She fights a
Hmm.
bad guy. She wins. Spoiler alert. Was
Yeah.
that a spoiler? She exists in 2017, so of course she didn't die.
No.
So that's my review of Wonder Woman 84. If you were excited,
It was a
you'll like it.
movie.
If you weren't excited, move along. You know,
Hmm.
you can
Yeah.
proceed safely without watching it. There's no information that you've gained by this. As in, you can probably skip Wonder Woman 1984 and watch the next DCEU movie, and you'll have missed nothing.
Yep. All right. All right. That's our Wonder Woman talk.
Yes.
Real quick, just since we're on the topic of movies that came out last year with Wonder Woman, I just want to mention some movies I think were the best of 2020. I only saw about like 6 movies in 2020 because none really came out, and interested in like a couple of them, I guess. But I just want to say, Wonder Woman like was in my top 5, but it wasn't. I mean, Hamilton. I feel like everyone's seen that, and it's not really a 2020 movie. It's a play that has been on Broadway. I mean, obviously not right now, but
Yeah.
has been on Broadway. Soul, of course, was great. Um, really loved that movie. Wasn't my favorite Pixar movie of the year though, because I liked Onward more.
Oh,
I just
right. Onward came out in 2020.
Yeah, that came out right at the start of when everything was going down. So I thought Onward was great, and I really connected with that movie more so I think because I have a brother, and it's a story about an older and younger brother. And but my favorite movie of 2020 was Palm Springs. It was the most fun movie of the year, and Andy Samberg is great in anything he does. Evan, do you have any movies you want to mention that came out last year that are good
Again,
and people should watch?
like you, I also didn't watch that many films last year.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've seen, I'd probably say, hmm, I guess Soul was my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would be my favorite in any other year though, because it
Sure,
wasn't. I
that's
didn't
the
see
other
Paul,
thing.
which I really did want to see, but I didn't see
Okay,
it.
it's on Hulu.
And
I'll give you my password if
uh,
you want it.
I can,
Yeah.
but I didn't see Palm Springs, but I did see Soul. I thought Soul was way even better than I thought it would be. I knew it was Pixar, so I knew it wouldn't be bad.
Mm-hmm.
The Pixar movies, I think, they've got their ups and downs, but none of
Yeah.
them are really terrible films, I'd say.
Besides the Cars movie, the last two Cars movies,
I didn't
they
see the
ruined that
last two
franchise.
Cars movies.
Cars
Oh,
1 is a top 5 Pixar movie. I disregard the other two.
Cars 1, I remember because some people don't really like Cars 1, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought it's a nice, slow Pixar. I liked how like homebound it was.
Yeah,
I appreciated that.
it's a
But
very human story, though it's about
yeah,
cars.
it's a very human story about cars.
I think you could say that about any Pixar movie, but whatever.
Wow. I mean, I obviously Soul isn't. It's not like my absolute favorite Pixar, but it's
Yeah.
definitely one of my. I would definitely say it's one of my favorites
Mm-hmm.
that I've seen, and so I would say, yeah, probably my best of 2020. But I'm sure had I seen more movies in 2020, I might have came to a different conclusion. But yeah, I probably say Soul was my best. I also saw a movie. Uh, I don't know if it's like a smaller movie. People are kind of talking about it, but it's called
Okay,
Promising Young Woman.
I have heard of that.
I thought it was pretty good. It was a pretty good. It's a little like revenge thriller,
Okay,
and I found it pretty interesting. It's kind of like a black comedy where uh Casey Mulligan is kind of she's getting revenge on all these guys, and I found it pretty good. It's got an amazing like star-studded cast. It's got like Alfred
okay.
Molina. It's got uh it'll come to me, I'm sure, but like it's got so
Chris
many.
Evans.
Does it? No, I don't think it has Chris
I
Evans.
was saying that as a joke because he's coming back and
It's got
Jessica
like
Bond.
Allison Brie. I'm sure
Okay,
when this podcast is over, I'll remember all the big names in this movie, and I'll be
sure.
like, I had him and him and him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a good watch. It's got Bo
Okay.
Burnham. It's definitely a
Oh, Bo Burnham's the best.
yeah.
I'll have to check that out now.
I mean, I haven't seen him act in anything else. I've seen his
I haven't seen him act either, but I've seen his comedy stuff, and it's some of the best stuff out there.
like I think every member of Gen Z, we've all
Oh,
been raised on
absolutely.
the Bo Burnham specials. But I would say it's a pretty entertaining film. Uh yeah, pretty good. It was a pretty good movie. It's
Okay,
solid picture, Sometimes you
cool.
just see a movie and it's like it's not a masterpiece or whatever, but it was good.
Doesn't
I'm
have a
glad I saw it.
dreamstone.
Hmm?
Doesn't have a dreamstone.
It doesn't have a magic rock that you can grant wishes on.
I heard in the reviews that was like, check this movie out. There's no dreamstone.
The dreams.
My sources have said.
Which why would you? I'm sure that's what it's called in the comics, but why would you call it the Dreamstone in your
I don't
$1 million movie?
know.
Like some coked out Warner Brothers executive, like, hey, it's called the Dreamstone, okay? It grants wishes, and then he wishes for power, and then he gets a lot of power.
Yep. Pedro Pascal is the Dreamstone. Okay.
Okay.
Um, Okay, this is the last thing I want to talk about. Just if you have any final thoughts on any movies coming out in this year, fingers crossed, because obviously we don't know if stuff will get pushed back. And if there's any
Mhm.
like recent trailers or recent releases that you want to talk about. Um, I have a couple movies that I'm really anticipating coming out this year. Hopefully they do. But yeah, you can go ahead first if you want.
Well, I'm really excited about the 2021 lineup. I think it looks
Yeah,
pretty good. Um, of course, I'm probably most excited for if anyone out there, if you
know
know
where
me,
this is going.
I'm a good enthusiast of the Bond franchise.
Hmm.
So No Time to Die, I'm pretty excited for.
Hmm.
Uh, it's got again an amazing cast. Um, Also Dune, of course. It's
Yep.
got Dennis,
Yep. I know you're my Dune guy.
whatever his name is,
Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve, is that it?
Denis Villeneuve, I think.
I
I
think.
might be butchering that.
Blade Runner
Yes, he
guy.
did Blade
I'll
Runner.
call him that. But
Blade Runner guy.
but I'm really excited for Dune. I'm still trying to read the book. It's very long. I
Okay.
just keep being like, when's the worm gonna come in? But
Yeah.
I'm excited for Dune. I'm excited for the Batman, of course.
Hmm.
Um, and also, you may not know this, Declan, but I am a Wes Anderson
Yes. I think I do know
enthusiast.
this. Hmm.
I am a
When is
Wes
the French Dispatch, of course,
Right.
is that scheduled to come out this year? I did not know that.
Yeah, later this year, The French
Okay.
Dispatch. Because the trailer, it was supposed to come out in like April last year,
Okay.
but I think it just kind of got like thrown. Because I think now it's going to be harder for releases like that to be coming out this year, I feel like, because all the superhero films have been kind of compacted into one year,
Sure.
where you have like the Batman, you have
Black
Bond,
Widow.
your
I
Black
think there's
Widow,
4 Marvel movies coming out this year
right? The four
on
Marvel
top of
movies.
all the series.
You've also got like your Dune and whatever like that. You've got these big multi-million dollar blockbuster, and French Dispatch is also a pretty big movie, but like
Hmm.
it doesn't have that like
It's not a summer
blockbuster
blockbuster.
draw.
Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't have that like blockbuster draw that all of these movies have. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the studios align their releases,
Hmm.
because I feel like these are enough summer blockbusters, I guess, for 2 years worth. This is 2 years
Yeah,
worth of summer
absolutely.
blockbusters. And so they're going to be back to back. You're just going to see big release after big release after big release. And so I think
Hmm.
the smaller releases are going to have to be more strategic to make sure people like see them. You know,
Yep.
you put the French Dispatch up against, the Black Widow movie. Obviously, that's not. So,
Yeah.
but I am pretty excited for 2021 in movies. I'm sure there's more that I've forgotten. Declan, you can
Yeah.
take
Yeah. I
yours.
was gonna, the Marvel stuff we kind of touched on. Spider-Man 3 probably gonna be late this year. I know they're filming that right now. Black Widow and Eternals, and also Shang-Chi is the other Marvel movie that's releasing this year. I'm pretty sure. So gonna be some stuff we've seen, some stuff we haven't. Obviously, Black Widow was supposed to come out last summer, so we've seen, I guess, a lot of footage of that. Obviously, just a couple minutes of the movie, but that's something that people have been waiting for, I guess. But we kind of know what happens to Black Widow, so I'm not the most excited about it. But who knows? Maybe it's a fun spy movie. Fast and Furious 9, I have on here. I love the Fast and Furious movies. They're so fun. I think they're going to space in this one, but I'm not sure. Even if they aren't, I will be watching it wherever it is because I saw Fast 8 and Hobbs and Shaw in the theaters when they came out, and those were the most fun movies I have ever seen. And yes, you can talk about how all the stuff they do is ridiculous, but they don't have a dreamstone. They just have The Rock, Jason Statham, and cool cars and stunts.
They don't
So
need a
I'm in.
wishing rock. They've
They
got the
don't. Yes. Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's the best joke ever.
You
Yeah,
don't need to pity me.
you don't. Yes. So Fast and Furious 9, I'm in. And then I have Free Guy on here, the Ryan Reynolds movie,
Oh,
um, which I saw the trailer for that the first time in the theaters. I want to say when I was seeing new Star Wars or Marvel movie, and I mean, the trailer for that looked awesome. Joe Keery's in it from Stranger Things, who plays Steve. He's my favorite character in Stranger Things. Yeah, really excited for that. Looks awesome. Ryan Reynolds is just watchable in anything. So
that's the thing. I
yeah.
love Ryan Reynolds and anything he's done.
Mhm.
I just he's kind of I feel like we've kind of got this like Ryan Reynolds like archetype, and
Sure.
I always look forward to seeing it. It's
Mhm.
always charming to me. You know, the
He's not a
Deadpool,
role. He's just Ryan Reynolds.
right? It's just he's being himself, which
Yeah.
is always fun to see.
Yeah.
Even like in Detective Pikachu, I was like, I was so enthralled every time Pikachu was speaking. I was like, this is
Mhm.
great. This is really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
It's Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. We're the Ryan Reynolds show here. So very excited for Free Guy. Hope that comes out this year. Last comic book movie, but I have the Suicide Squad on here. I just love what
Oh,
James Gunn did with Guardians so much. I love both those movies. And I think DC needs something like this, someone like him to give a new take. And John Cena's in it. I didn't like. It was weird. I saw a floating helmet in the trailers when he was supposed to be on screen. I don't know what was up with that. People said they saw a person, but I'm gonna stop talking.
committed to the bit, you know?
Yeah. Um. So,
I
so
think
apparently he's in that movie.
A James Gunn will really fit for
Yeah.
because what works with DC, I think, is that they don't have that Marvel kind of like control.
Yes.
They don't have that kind of
Kevin
Marvel.
Feige.
Everything is yeah. They don't have the Feige. They don't have the streamline, which I think can be an asset.
Hmm.
Like
Absolutely.
I know some people had mixed reception. I really liked Joker. I really liked Shazam. I
Hmm.
liked that they could. DC has a bit more freedom to make like weirder movies, which I liked. And I think
Hmm.
that allows their movies for some to be really good, like I think
Yeah.
Joker and Shazam, and some to be really bad, like Suicide Squad or Batman versus Superman.
Hmm.
Um, and I think something like I think Suicide Squad, we might see a return to like James Gunn's like more gun-y type
Yes.
like style, like his kind of like super or his like trauma days and stuff like that. I feel like we can get like a real into the sort of nitty-gritty oddball James Gunn. And he brought
Yeah.
that to Guardians of the Galaxy, and I really that's why that's probably one of my favorite MCU movies
Hmm.
because he made it kind of weird and kind of goofy, and we got to see the space side of the MCU, which we hadn't before. We got to see
Yeah.
the weird new characters and Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. I loved how you got to see the just how the universe functions out there.
Yep.
And it was fun, it was interesting, it was creative, and I'm very glad he's I think the perfect person to bring that for the Suicide Squad to make it weird, off the wall, kind of dark, kind
Hmm.
of
It's
kitschy,
rated
kind
R,
of
which is a
campy.
big plus for me.
Oh yeah, it's probably gonna be pretty violent if you look at like
Yeah.
Super and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So that's the thing. I think the DCEU will benefit a lot more from opening up to R ratings than the
Yep,
MCU will. Because the MCU has a
absolutely.
good thing going. They can keep tossing out hit after hit after hit. But I think if the DCEU really wants to make some really great films, open them up to R ratings, open them up to whatever. I like
Yeah,
how they're just producing whatever they need to. The Matt Reeves Batman movie, I'm so excited
so in
for
on
that
that.
because it seems like it's just like it looks like more noir-ish, like more
Yes,
neo-noir kind of like David Fincher style, which I really
yeah,
enjoy. And I'm like, yes, keep doing that.
more of
Keep
that.
pushing weirder. They don't have to be, again, I'm
You
not
don't need a
expecting them
huge
to put us,
interconnecting storyline, I think,
yeah,
is the lesson to take from them.
yeah, you don't have to think about, don't try to force that whole overarching storyline. And again, once again, I'm not expecting them to do some avant-garde, like
Hmm.
gritty think piece. They don't obviously know, you want this movie to make money, but you can be weird with these things. People are going to see them no matter what. You
Hmm.
can be weird with them. You can be creative with them. You can make this one a noir film. You can make this one just like a light Ghostbuster style comedy like Shazam was. You can have fun with them. Play around with it.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. And Deadpool will be rated R in the MCU, by the way. But like you
Ooh,
said, I think
I didn't know
that's
that.
really the only rated R movie Marvel would be willing to do. Um, so yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying on that. So yeah, and then last one here. I'm just gonna mention this quickly. In the Heights. Hoping that comes out. Me and Evan both really like musicals. Love Anthony Ramos. Um, yeah, just excited for that. And Stephanie Beatriz from Brooklyn Nine-Nine will also be in that. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
excited to see anything Lin Manuel does because he's good at things.
That and Spielberg's West Side Story is coming out next year
Yes,
too.
correct, correct. And Lin Manuel's currently, I think they're filming, but I think they released images for it this week. Tick Tick
Oh yeah.
Boom.
Tick Tick Boom.
He's
That's coming
directing
out
with,
on Netflix.
yep, Andrew Garfield, who, I mean, that's an awesome combination in my opinion.
Right.
And Jonathan Larson did Tick Tick Boom, who also did
Rent.
other way Rent, which is my favorite musical. So yeah, in on that, in on everything Lin Manuel right now, I guess. All right, so those are movies hopefully coming out this year. Any final thoughts, trailers you've seen recently? You want to just
I'm
spew some stuff out there?
trying to think. What's some trailers? I don't think there haven't been that many new trailers. I saw the Netflix one for all the stuff that they're releasing.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So that looks pretty good. I'm pretty
Yeah,
excited for that.
a lot of Netflix films coming out this year. I saw. I think it's like I'm not gonna say the exact number, but it's a lot.
I think 2021 looks like it's gearing to be a pretty good movie year, I feel like.
Yeah,
And it's
I
all coming
agree.
to you from your house. Just nice. You don't even have to
Yeah,
leave.
absolutely.
I can
Yeah, I
watch
saw. Go ahead.
I can watch, you know, Martin Scorsese's new film on my iPhone, as I'm sure
Hmm.
he intended, as I'm
Yes,
sure
yes.
he would have
This is
wanted it.
cinema. Yeah, yeah. Martin Scorsese's MCU movie coming soon. That's what the rumors are. I'm totally
Wouldn't
kidding.
that be great?
It would be hilarious.
Imagine if he just like bit the bullet and he was just like, hey, "These are cinema. I'll direct
Yeah,
one." And
yeah.
he made, like the most violent Daredevil movie
Or
ever.
yeah, he just does like a DC movie, like
Yeah,
Suicide
like
Squad 2,
listen, Martin
3.
Scorsese does Batman. I will see that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Leonardo
Um,
DiCaprio's Batman.
I saw the trailer for the new Tom Holland movie, Cherry.
Oh,
It,
I didn't see that one.
it looks fine. Like I'm sure it's gonna be good because the Russo brothers are doing it too, and I like the cast, but like it was a lot for a trailer in my opinion.
Mhm.
So that's my stance on that. Um, what else did I see? Anything else? Um, I know there's a trailer for movie that Zendaya and John David Washington will be starring in, Malcolm and Marie.
Yeah,
Have not seen that trailer. It'll probably be good. They're both good, and they actually filmed
definitely.
it during lockdown. So that's, I guess everything's being filmed during lockdown now, but whatever. And I saw the trailer to the To All the Boys I've Loved Before, the third movie. I felt necessary to mention it. I won't be
What's
watching it. That's what I have to say.
there's a sequel, I know, but what's it based on a
I saw
book?
the second one. I didn't see the first one.
Is the second one good?
Um, yeah. Um, Jordan Fisher's in it. I like Jordan Fisher.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
I know it's based on a book is the thing. So does the book
Yes,
always have a sequel? And is this based on the book's
you're
sequel?
asking the wrong person here. um, yeah. Anyone who likes those movies, good for you. I
I
don't.
have to respect anyone who likes any of those Netflix original rom-coms, that
Yeah,
the Kissing Booth, any of that
the
stuff.
Kissing Booth
I,
I have not
I
seen.
have to respect anyone who, because there are people out there who love these films. If there weren't,
Mhm.
it wouldn't have two sequels.
You
And
are
so
right
I
about that.
really respect, I have to respect the
I heard
diehard fan.
I heard the rumor for To All the Boys 4, they're gonna include a Dreamstone.
Yeah, it's gonna be all Dreamstone.
Where's
Actually,
the Dreamstone cinematic universe?
I will amend. I will amend my best of 2020 list
Okay.
because I did see uh David Fincher's Mank,
Oh, man. Okay. How was it?
and once again, I don't know if this movie would make my top of list if it came out any other year.
Okay.
It came out this year, so it makes the list. Mank,
That it did.
good film, recommend, watch it or don't.
Do you
I don't
still rank Soul
know.
over it?
Huh?
Would you still rank Soul over it?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I think I enjoyed watching Soul a bit more,
Okay.
but they were both great films.
Yeah.
So check out those. If you have Disney Plus, watch Soul. If you got Netflix,
Yeah.
watch Mank or don't. I don't
We're done.
watch what you want to watch.
what, what's the Kissing Booth
Watch
5,
The Kissing
6,
Booth
and
2.
7? Well,
Watch
yeah.
Wonder Woman
Is the Kissing
1984.
Booth 2 out?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll add it to my watch list.
Watch Robert Downey Jr. in Doolittle, of course.
Oh yeah,
That was the
did that
peak
came
of
out come out in 2020?
it did come out in 2020. I
Holy
did see
crap!
that one. I did see Doolittle.
You
That one
did see Doolittle. What are
I
your thoughts?
did. My thoughts?
We're a Doolittle review show now.
I would call it, if there's such a thing as like whimsy overload, I would have that
Hmm.
during Doolittle. They just that it's not great.
No,
Also, Robert Downey Jr. does like this British accent that
I saw that in the trailers.
it's just it's just like, what are you saying? What are you talking? He
What
like
I
goes
don't get is why that was his first role after being Iron Man for 10 years.
is to be Dr. Doolittle. I don't the whole
Yeah.
see the whole thing about the movie is that it's supposed to be this like big wondrous adventure,
Hmm.
but it's a terrible adventure because he goes to like one place and then he is done and then he comes back. It's like the worst adventure ever.
How long is it?
It's like it's a graceful hour 40, but I have a feeling because of how much of this movie is like done in ADR, I have a
Uh-huh.
feeling the movie was originally 3 hours long and
Okay.
they cut out like 2 hours of it because the whole thing is that it's like a big adventure movie, but it's like
Hmm.
he goes on a half of an adventure and then he's done.
Hmm.
Also, there's a part involving a dragon who has an impacted colon,
Okay.
and he has to unplug that
Compelling.
colon, and he does
Hmm.
it. He Robert Downey Jr. gives a dragon a proctology exam, basically.
Okay.
And
It's much watched stuff, is what you're saying.
listen, if you want to watch some campy trash, Doolittle.
Watch
That's my
Doolittle.
biggest recommend of the evening.
So if you take anything away from us, we're telling you to watch Doolittle, all the Kissing Booth movies, however many there are, and anything Noah Centineo is in, because he's our favorite actor.
He is.
Right? That's what we're saying. All right. Well, I think that's everything. I just dropped something. That's all we have to say about things. And we're going to stop saying things because I'm going to say bye. And if anyone watched, thanks. Keep watching because should we do this every Friday? I think we should.
I think we should. This was a
All
shocking
right.
success.
Okay. It's a deal then. All right, Evan, any last words?
I have one word, and that is goodbye. See, I did a little twist on you. You thought I had more to say, but
Yeah.
it was actually just a salutation.
Say it one more time so that's the last word before I end.
Oh, sorry. Goodbye.